Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Shadowlands is right around the corner, and in this one, I've got my top 5 PvP meme classes. These are specializations that I would otherwise consider misfits and outcasts. If that's something that interests you to kind of be the hipster and try and battle against the meta rather than go along with it, then perhaps these are specializations for you. If you're someone who's worried about picking a spec and having it really underperform and you're not certain and you'd like to avoid it, then this would be my top 5 list for those specializations to avoid in a competitive PvP scenario. Now, these specializations may have their merits in things like world PvP or solo dueling, but strictly competitive format, ranked arena, even rated battlegrounds to some degree, I feel these specializations are lacking or just outright got forgotten in some cases for Shadowlands. So let's get started. Coming in at number 5, which means it's the most likely to succeed out of them on the top 5 here, is the Outlaw Rogue. The main reason I think that it could succeed is that it has the option to play Mage Rogue, and Mage Rogue is never bad, as well as Hunter Rogue, and Marksmanship Hunters are amazing right now. It does have one redeeming factor to it, with having Blinding Powder, reducing the cooldown of their blind, so that it's desynced with the healer's trinket. That is likely their biggest strength. But at the moment, the reason why it's a bit of a meme is because Subtlety has higher burst, more frequent burst opportunities, better setup, and then Assassination has just better raw output and pressure. And then Outlaw Rogue exists in a place where it's inferior than both, but you kind of get this reduced cooldown blind. You could make it work, but why wouldn't you just play sub? That's basically the question when it comes to Rogue. But Outlaw came in at number 5. Moving into number 4, you may have been seeing a lot of videos about the beta and Enhancement Shamans just outright one-shotting people, but this is due to a Covenant spell and not the Enhancement Shaman itself. You might see Chain Harvest or Fey Transfusion, one-shots on the beta. These are things that I expect to get nerfed. They're just so obviously strong that I feel like there's no there's no horrible radar in the world that wouldn't detect these one shots coming from these Covenant abilities. And without those Covenant abilities, Enhancement Shamans are walking potatoes. You don't do any damage, you will never hit anything, and you will fall over and die unless you build your character with resto conduits and resto legendaries. And even then, you're a walking healing potato until you run out of mana. A lot of the other hybrids in the game that heal don't have that problem. They don't run out of mana. But Enhancement Shaman, good luck purging. You're you can't heal, you couldn't move, you've got no mobility, don't do any damage, you're really not a threat. You're decent support until you run out of mana, and then at that point, again, you're just a walking potato. So Enhancement Shaman, to me, even though right now it looks like a lot of fun because it's zap and people are dead with the Covenant abilities, without those, you're basically nothing. It's a specialization that I'm personally going to avoid unless it received a significant amount of changes, something like baseline Feral Lunge at least, so you can move, because with Infliction Warlocks getting that permanent corruption slow, Frost Mages, Death Knights, all these specs likely to be prevalent, you are just not going to move. Running out of mana is really annoying, considering that there are no other melee DPS hybrids or non-hybrids that really are resource restricted as much as the Enhancement Shaman. It's one of those cases where it's like everybody else isn't, but you are, and you're kind of just the odd one out. So Enhancement Shaman is one that I'm very worried about because it is actually fun. It just doesn't have the numbers to back it up. Meme spec number 3, we talked positively about this specialization a lot. I think that it's still a bit on the fence, but I wanted to include a healer specialization. And the only one I feel right now that's standing out as what could be a meme is the Holy Priest. More notably, this is a specialization in Battle for Azeroth that was notorious in 2s with Greater Heal and Destruction Warlocks, just not being able to kill anything and dying to Chaos Bolts, right? Greater Heal is going on to a cooldown, so that niche of being this like really annoying 2v2 spec probably disappearing. It still has only one school of magic. It's incredibly limited in its burst healing to Serenity, and when it doesn't have Serenity, it spams all of its mana away if it hasn't been interrupted or tunneled down into the dirt. It's a specialization that out of all the healers, I think you will struggle the most to actually make work in a competitive format. Maybe not in a rated battleground scenario, but in ranked arena, certainly. I think their status in 2v2 has dropped, which was the only place they even had any status. They are getting a lot of cool and fun talents, but unfortunately, the cool and fun is not translating 100% into performance and throughput. Sure, you got an honor talent. You can fly into the sky. You got this cardinal mending. Your prayer of mending is super powerful, but it's actually not really that powerful. The numbers are just not there. You're one of the only healers I've noticed that actually just runs out of mana, has significant mana drawbacks, really bad weaknesses like just getting tunnel down, spam interrupted, with not really many strengths. So in my mind, it's a specialization that while I think it's looking pretty cool and it is fun, it needs a lot of just, under the hood work. Like it needs its engine checked before it comes out if it's going to move out of this meme placement. Number 2, we've got the Demonology Warlock. This is a specialization that I feel like kind of got forgotten when it comes to Shadowlands, especially Covenants. Things like only recently being included in the Necrolords to have Demon Bolt as well on their decimating bolts to increase the damage. None of the Covenants really fit too well with the fantasy of Demonology Warlock. Scouring Tithe for Kyrian made sense to get soul shards to reset for more Hand of Gul'dan, but it also requires the target to die, and in ranked PvP, if the target died, you already won. So getting that benefit is like pretty much null. It's a specialization where I just didn't feel the impact anymore. I've played Legion Demonology, a little bit of Warlords of Draenor Demonology. I've experienced Miss of Pandaria Demonology when you had Metamorphosis still before Demon Hunters came along. But this iteration of Demonology Warlock, I just feel like I'm basically playing a mobile game. I just kind of sit there and hit the screen, and then a bunch of things spawn and they do everything for me, which is really annoying for your opponents and also has significant counterplay because all those pets can be rooted, slowed, avoided, line of sighted. You get a ton of drawback. You're really annoying, but you're not that fantastic. And with the current performance of Affliction and Destruction, I just don't think that you're going to compete. You don't really have a place. You bring a Mortal Wounds effect, but it's very minor. A lot of other specializations got their Mortal Wounds back and synergize better with Affliction and Destruction. It's a spec that just kind of like translated over. It's like, yeah, it's there. It's, yeah, a demon, you can play it, but I'm really not. And this is coming from someone that actually liked playing Demonology and Legion. I really enjoyed kind of demonic empowerment, engaging with like, I got a ton of pets out, I need to buff them up and then go for a big Thalkil's consumption. That felt like I was building towards something. Now it's just like, all right, I've summoned a lot of imps. All right, my tyrant makes them all do stuff, and I'm not really like engaged with sometimes I don't even know where the damage is coming from if I am ever actually doing damage, which normally you're not. In my mind, this is a meme spec. You're really going to struggle to make it work. Maybe you want to be that again. Maybe you want to fight against the curve. You want to be the hipster. You want to prove me wrong. I would gladly love to be proved wrong if you can make Demonology perform well and look fun. All to you. But off my assessment of it, it's coming in at number 2. And finally, the Pesta Resistance, the number 1 meme spec that I would not recommend to anybody in competitive ranked PvP because it brings absolutely no unique benefit whatsoever, significantly underperformance. This is going to be the Fury Warrior. In competitive arena, even with single-minded Fury coming back, great. You get to wear 2 one-handers instead of 2 two-handers. You still don't do any comparable damage to Arms Warrior. You still don't bring a Mortal Wounds effect. They randomly pruned your honor talent that gave you 1 advantage over Arms, which was Bloodthirst to remove slows. That randomly is gone. The one thing you had going for you is gone. You didn't get any of the other ones that Arms Warriors have, and Arms Warrior just feels amazing at the moment and just performing amazingly. So you've already got Big Brother Arms Warrior that's a competition for you. This is a specialization that it just feels like a basic melee in PvP. It has no real unique flavor to it. No extra utility that the arm specialization wouldn't already bring. And it just doesn't compete numbers wise. It's a specialization that I would not recommend to anybody, really. in any circumstance. I'm trying to think of a circumstance where in competitive, right? So maybe solo battlegrounds because you want to heal yourself a little bit more, but even there, like, you're not going to have the movement speed benefit anymore. It's just a spec that kind of, if there was any spec in the game that suffered from the unpruning, right? I hate to say that, like, you suffered by abilities coming back. It was kind of Fury, because now you don't have any identity comparatively to arms, and you're not performing better. Maybe that changes. I mean, Siegebreaker right now is like more like Siege Poker. You're not hurting anybody, and you kind of just fall over at the moment. And that's mostly because burst damage is so high. Typically, this is a specialization with where maybe your place is against damage over time effects, and you maintain a lot of healing. But right now, there's a lot of classes that just and you're dead. You're like a bug on the wall. You get splatted. You don't even get a chance to have the heal over time effects kind of kick in. But even if you did, this is a specialization that to me is 100% a meme when it comes to ranked PvP. Again, if you're out there, you want to be a Fury Warrior God, you want to prove me wrong, please do so. Please do so, because I would love to be wrong. I want every spec in the game to be super fun and enjoyable and competitive. But as it stands right now, less than a month away from the game coming out, I would put Fury Warrior as the numero uno meme spec for Shadowlands. I hope that you enjoyed this list and it was useful to you in your explorations and finding what class and specialization you want to be playing for Shadowlands. If you did, please leave the video with a like. Comment down below with your thoughts about specializations that you think are total memes, or if you think a spec was missing. I know a lot of Rep Paladins are out there thinking, like, why didn't he put Rep Paladins out there? Okay, let me explain why I didn't put Rep Paladins out here. Word of Glory got buffed. That you probably all watched a Savix video or something. Word of Glory doesn't heal. It does now. And you can proc free Word of Glories through talents. And when I was playing, I did more healing than my healer often than not. And their burst one shot isn't coming from a Covenant spell. Well, some of it is coming from a Covenant spell. It's more coming from the base kit of the class. So to nerf it would be a much more difficult than what would happen to Enhancement Shamans. You still have the option for mobility, unlike Enhancement doesn't have the option. In my mind, like, Rep Paladin already is kind of a budget melee to a lot of the high mobility ones, but Enhancement Shaman is a budget Rep Paladin when it comes to everything, because it runs out of mana and it doesn't move and it never hurts anybody other than a cheesy Covenant ability. So Rep Paladin didn't make the list because as it stands right now, I think it has a solid kit overall that will function, and I didn't feel like it was going to be a meme. And I think it would be difficult to nerf where its pressure is coming from, because it's so many things that are actually within the class itself rather than just was one Covenant ability like for Shaman, which is why I didn't make the top 5. Before a lot of Rep Paladins down there get mad, because I already guarantee that after I asked if you felt like your spec should be on this list, you're probably saying Rep Paladins. So this video is a little bit later now in the beta, and there were updates to Rep Paladin. They're feeling a lot better in the current build. Yes, they still have the downsides of never moving against mages. You'll feel like a god in other situations, but then you'll feel like a peasant in that, and that's still a problem. But I think you will function competitively. These specs that I put here, I think, are just complete memes, and you're gonna have to work really hard to make them work. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. I'll have links to my class recommendations. So these are specs I would likely avoid, but I'll also link to videos where specs that I would recommend that you try for Shadowlands that I think will be reliable and competitive, and as well as fun and enjoyable. That's the main purpose of the channel, is to be able to make our decisions tailored to our own gameplay so that we have the best experience when the game actually comes out. So thank you again very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.